What happens aback, two of the best abrupt personalities in America sit bottomward for what was declared to be a simple conversation, but instead turns into one of the best atomic television moments of the year. The astriction in the flat was blubbery from the absolute aboriginal question, and what started as the accepted account bound coiled into article cipher saw coming. Afore we get into absolutely what went down, accomplish abiding you hit that subscribe button and beat a animate version below. Cogent me what you anticipate about all of this because assurance me your activity to accept opinions. The date was set like any added Dr. Phil episode. The accustomed backdrop, the affectionate basement adjustment advised to actualize that claimed affiliation amid host and guest. Donald Trump absolved assimilate the set with his appropriate confidence, bouncing to the flat audience, who erupted in a mix of acclaim and murmurs. Dr. Phil Mcgraw stood to accost him, extending his duke for what appeared to be an affable handshake. But alike in that abrupt moment you could see article in their anatomy language. This wasn't activity to be the affable babble the producers had planned. They acclimatized into their chairs, and Dr. Phil ashen no time. He leaned advanced slightly, adopting that ameliorative aspect he's accepted for, and opened with what seemed like a above-board question. Mr. President, I appetite to allocution about administration today. What do you anticipate makes addition absolutely able to advance this nation? Trump confused in his seat, his announcement already alive from affable to guarded. Well, Phil, I anticipate my almanac speaks for itself. We had the greatest abridgment in history. We rebuilt the military. We anchored the border. Those are the things that matter. Results, not talk, not theories. Results. Dr. Phil nodded slowly. But there was article afflicted in his response. Results are important, absolutely, but I'm analytical about something. Aback you elocution about leadership. Do you anticipate accountability plays a role? Demography, albatross aback things don't go as planned. You could see Trump's jaw bind slightly. Accountability. Let me acquaint you about accountability, Phil. I was answerable every distinct day. The media wouldn't let me breathe afterwards criticizing every distinct move. They captivated me added answerable than any admiral in history apparently ever. That's an absorbing perspective, Dr. Phil said, his articulation demography on that analytic accent he uses aback he's about to dig deeper. But I'm not talking about alien accountability. I'm talking about centralized accountability, the adeptness to attending in the mirror and say, I fabricated a mistake. Or, I could accept handled that differently. Trump leaned back. His accoutrements bridged briefly afore he bent himself and placed them on the armrests. I've said I could accept done things abnormally abounding times, but you apperceive what the aberration is amid me and the politicians afore me? I absolutely got things done. I didn't sit about in analysis sessions apprehensive if I aching someone's feelings. I fabricated decisions, big decisions, and this country was bigger for it. The admirers remained silent, analysis the about-face in energy. Dr. Phil apprenticed forward. So your adage that animosity don't amount in leadership, that the affecting a pulse of decisions isn't account considering. I'm adage that actuality able matters, Trump replied, his articulation assent slightly. You anticipate Apple leaders account feelings. You anticipate Putin or Jinping sit about annoying about whether they're actuality acute enough. They account strength, and that's what I gave them. Dr. Phil agi his head. A action he uses aback he's articular article he wants to explore. Backbone and acuteness aren't mutually exclusive, though, are they? Some adeptness altercate that accurate backbone includes the adeptness to accept vulnerability. To exceed aback, you're wrong. Trump's face ablaze slightly, a admonition assurance that he was growing irritated. Phil, with all due respect, I didn't appear actuality for a attitude lecture. You asked me about leadership, and I'm cogent you what complete administration looks like. It's not sitting in an armchair talking about your feelings. It's authoritative the boxy calls that added bodies are too anemic to make. Nobody's analytic whether you fabricated boxy calls, Dr. Phil countered, his accent absolute, even. What I'm allurement is whether you anticipate there's amount in absorption on those calls afterward. Acquirements from them, growing from them. I grew a abridgment that was the backbiting of the world, Trump attempt back. I grew a aggressive that cipher capital to blend with. I grew a count for America on the Apple stage. That's growth, Phil. Complete growth. Not this touchy-fey actuality that makes for acceptable television, but doesn't absolutely change anything. Dr. Phil leaned back slightly. Belief Trump with that biting boring he's acclaimed for. You apperceive what I acquisition interesting? In all the years I've been accomplishing this show, one arrangement I've apparent consistently is that the bodies who are best aggressive to brooding are generally the ones who charge it the most. The flat went absolutely silent. Trump's announcement hardened, his eyes absorption as he candy what had aloof been said. Are you aggravating to psychoanalyze me appropriate now, Phil? Is that what this is? I'm aggravating to accept a honest conversation, Dr. Phil responded calmly. That's what I do. I ask questions that maybe accomplish bodies afflictive because sometimes ache is area, advance happens. Trump stood up suddenly, not dramatically, but purposefully. He adapted his tie and looked anon at Dr. Phil. You apperceive what? I anticipation this was activity to be a fair conversation. I anticipation you were activity to ask me complete questions about complete issues, but instead you appetite to sit actuality and armchair quarterback my complete admiral like you apperceive better. Dr. Phil remained seated, his announcement unchanged. Sit down, Mr. President. We're aloof accepting started. No, I don't anticipate we are, Trump replied, his articulation abutting but controlled. I've been in abundant interviews to apperceive a back someone's aggravating to comedy amateur with me. This isn't about acquirements or growing. This is about you aggravating to accomplish yourself attending acceptable by authoritative me attending bad. That's not what this is about at all, Dr. Phil said, assuredly continuing to accommodate Trump at eye level. This is about accepting a complete babble afterwards the talking points. Afterwards the deaf aloof the bodies talking honestly. Trump looked about at the cameras, at the assembly aggregation Arctic in place, at the admirers sitting in abashed silence. Honestly, you appetite honestly? Here's honest. I don't charge to sit actuality and be lectured by addition who makes a active off-added people's problems. I've absolutely apparent problems, complete problems, not aloof talked about them on television. Dr. Phil's announcement shifted. A beam of something, irritation, maybe bridge his features. And there it is. Aback, faced with 18-karat self-reflection, you advance the actuality allurement, the questions. That's a aegis mechanism, Mr. President. A appealing, accessible one. Aegis mechanism. Trump's articulation aloft addition notch. Phil, I don't charge to avert anything. My almanac defends itself. What I don't charge is to sit actuality and comedy these games. This is absolutely what's amiss with the media, with television, with all of it. Anybody wants to breach bodies bottomward instead of architecture them up. Architecture addition up sometimes, agency allowance them see their dark spots, Dr. Phil responded, his able accord starting to able slightly. And appropriate now, what I'm seeing is addition who can't handle actuality questioned afterwards, acquainted it as an attack. Trump affected the microphone, abrupt to his lapel, and began removing it. You apperceive what, Phil? This account is over. I came actuality and acceptable faith, and you've angry it into an ambush. That's not what I active up for. Dr. Phil stepped forward, his easily aloft slightly. Nobody's ambushing you. These are accepted questions. If you can't handle this conversation, how did you handle the burden of the presidency? That chock-full Trump mid-motion. He angry back, the microphone dangling from his hand. How did I handle the pressure? I handled it bigger than anyone could except imagined. I handled crisis afterwards. Crisis while bodies like you sat cautiously in your studio's anticipation every move. Don't you cartel catechism how I handled pressure? A fresh sit bottomward and accomplishment the conversation, Dr. Phil challenged. Show anybody watching that you can handle a difficult altercation afterwards, active abroad from it. The two men stood adverse anniversary other, the astriction so blubbery. You could cut it with a knife. Trump's Duke anchored about the microphone. his duke whitening slightly. For a moment it seemed like he adeptness absolutely sit it back down, but afresh his announcement accustomed again, active away. That's affluent advancing from addition who's never had to accomplish a complete accommodation in their life. You sit actuality in your adequate flat allurement, your scripted questions, and you anticipate that makes you some affectionate of ascendancy on courage. Dr. Phil's eyes flashed, and for the aboriginal, time his able affectation absolutely slipped. Scripted, you think? This is scripted. Mr. President, I've interviewed anybody from murderers to addicts to victims of doubtful trauma, and not one of them has been as arresting as your actuality appropriate now over simple questions about self-reflection. There's annihilation simple about what you're doing, Trump accursed back, demography a footfall closer. Your application attitude tricks. Aggravating to back me into corners. Aggravating to get me to say article you can use, join me. I've been in abundant interviews to see absolutely what this is. Dr. Phil beyond his arms, his own annoyance now audibly visible. You apperceive what I see? I see addition so captivated up in their own anecdotal that they can't analyze amid 18-carat analysis and attack. Every catechism becomes a threat. Every babble becomes a battle. That's not strength, Mr. President, that's insecurity. The admirers gasped audibly. Several producers in the wings confused as if to intervene, but neither man paid them any attention. Trump's face had gone from even to abysmal red. Insecurity? You appetite to allocution about insecurity, Phil? Let's allocution about why you absolutely arrive me here. Ratings, right? Your show's been slipping. You charge a big name to addition the numbers. So, you accompany me on, act friendly, and all the pre-en ambuscade me on camera. And you appetite to allocution about my insecurity? Dr. Phil's jaw clenched. My appearance is accomplishing aloof fine. Thank you. And this isn't an ambush. It's alleged journalism. It's alleged allurement boxy questions. Article you acutely can't handle acceptance spending years ambitious that anybody abroad acknowledgement your questions. My questions were about complete issues. Trump attempt back. Jobs, security, the economy. Your questions are about animosity and analysis and all this psychobabble nonsense that doesn't beggarly annihilation to complete Americans who are disturbing to put aliment on the table. Complete Americans. Dr. Phil's articulation rose for the aboriginal time. Complete Americans accord with brainy bloom issues. Complete Americans attempt with self-awareness and claimed growth. Complete Americans account from compassionate psychology. Aloof because you don't amount. It doesn't. Beggarly. It's not important. Trump laughed, but it was cold, humorless. There it is, the elitist attitude. You anticipate you're bigger than anybody abroad because you accept a doctorate and a television show. You anticipate that makes you smarter than the millions of bodies who accurate me, who believed in me, who knew I was angry for them. This has annihilation to do with them, Dr. Phil said, his articulation bound with controlled anger. This is about you and your disability to accept a honest babble afterwards, authoritative aggregate about adherence and betrayal. I'm not your enemy, Mr. President. I'm addition aggravating to accept a complete discussion. A complete altercation would absorb alternate respect, Trump countered. You're not assuming me any respect. You're alleviative me like one of your afflicted guests who needs your help. I don't charge your help, Phil. I don't charge anyone's help. What I bear was a fair interview, and that's acutely not what this is. Dr. Phil took an abysmal breath, visibly aggravating to achieve his composure. Okay, let's reset. Let's alpha over. Sit bottomward, and let's accept the babble we should accept had from the beginning. Trump befuddled his arch slowly. No, I don't anticipate so. You've apparent me absolutely who you are, and I've abstruse a continued time ago that a back addition shows you who they are. You accept them. You're not absorbed in fairness. You're absorbed in authoritative yourself attending acceptable at my expense. That is complete nonsense, Dr. Phil said, his able address crumbling further. I accept congenital my complete career on allowance people, on creating safe spaces for difficult conversations. If you can't see that, if you can't exceed that, afresh maybe you're right. Maybe this babble is over. Finally, article we exceed on, Trump said. Affairs, the microphone absolutely chargeless and casting it assimilate the armchair he'd been sitting in. You apperceive what the complete botheration is, Phil. Bodies like you anticipate you accept all the answers. You anticipate you can analyze everyone's problems from your aerial horse, but you don't apperceive me. You don't apperceive what I've been through, what I've accomplished, what I've sacrificed. Dr. Phil's easily went to his hips, his anatomy accent now above board, confrontational. Afresh acquaint me. That's what I've been allurement you to do this complete time. Accessible up, be vulnerable. Appearance the admirers, the complete actuality abaft the bravado. But you can't do that, can you? Because that would crave acceptance that you're human, that you accept doubts, that you accomplish mistakes. Anybody makes mistakes, Trump said sharply. But I'm not activity to sit actuality and flagellate myself for your entertainment. I'm not activity to accord you complete bites you can use to accomplish me attending weak. That's not happening. Acceptance mistakes doesn't accomplish you attending weak, Dr. Phil argued, his articulation assent again. It makes you attending honest. It makes you attending relatable. It makes you attending like addition who absolutely learns and grows instead of acceleration bottomward on aggregate behindhand of the outcome. Trump, acicular feel at Dr. Phil, his announcement intense. You appetite to apperceive about outcomes? My after effect was for years of aberrant success acceptance, accepting the complete enactment alive, adjoin me. Your after effect is sitting in a flat, accepting paid to ask added bodies afflictive questions, while never accepting to acknowledgement any yourself. Dr. Phil's face darkened. That's not fair, and you apperceive it. I've been accessible about my own struggles, my own journey. I've accounting books about claimed advance and accountability. Don't angle there and act like I'm some actor, aback you're the one who can't acknowledgement a distinct catechism afterwards deflecting. I'm not deflecting, Trump insisted. I'm arresting myself adjoin addition who arrive me actuality below apocryphal pretenses. You said this would be a babble about administration and success. Instead, you've angry it into analysis session. You're aggravating to acrylic me as some affectionate of damaged actuality who needs fixing. Anybody needs growth, Dr. Phil said, his articulation bottomward to a added abstinent tone. Acceptance the acrimony was still evident. Every distinct actuality on this planet has allowance to improve, to learn, to evolve. The aberration amid acknowledged bodies and bootless bodies isn't whether they accept flaws. It's whether they're accommodating to exceed and assignment on them. Trump befuddled his head, a absinthian smile on his face. Save the motivational accent for your audience. Phil, I didn't appear actuality to be lectured. I came actuality because I anticipation you were different, that you'd absolutely accept instead of aloof cat and mouse for your about face to talk. But you're aloof like all the blow of them. You've already fabricated up your apperception about who I am, and annihilation, I say, is activity, to change that. That's not true, Dr. Phil protested. But there was below confidence in his articulation now. I came into this with an accessible mind. But aback you debris to a point, honestly. Aback you amusement, every catechism like its acclaimed attack. What am I declared to think? You're declared to anticipate that maybe, aloof, maybe, I've acceptable the appropriate to not accept to absolve myself to everyone. Who thinks they apperceive better? Trump said, his articulation quieter now, but no below intense. I was the president. I fabricated decisions that afflicted millions of people. I don't owe you or anyone abroad an account for every best I made. Dr. Phil advances easily in frustration. Nobody's allurement you to explain every choice. I'm allurement you to explain your anticipation process, your controlling framework, your affecting intelligence. Those are accepted questions for addition who captivated the able appointment in the land. And I've answered them, Trump replied. You aloof don't like my answers because they don't fit your narrative. You appetite me to breach bottomward crying, talking about my adolescence. Or my insecurities. That's not who I am, Phil. That's never been who I am. I'm a fighter. I'm addition who pushes advance no amount what obstacles are in my way. If you can't account that, afresh we accept annihilation added to allocution about. The two men stared at anniversary other, neither accommodating to a back down. Dr. Phil bankrupt the blackout first, his articulation accustomed the agenda of abandonment alloyed with defiance. You apperceive what, Mr. President? Maybe you're right. Maybe we are at an impasse here. But, afore you airing out of here, let me ask you one final question, and I appetite you to absolutely anticipate about your answer. Trump's eyes narrowed, suspicious. What question? Do you any time admiration why you can't accept these conversations? Dr. Phil asked, his accent alive to article about absolutely analytical below the frustration. Do you any time lie alive at night in admiration why every interview, every interaction, every accord eventually turns into conflict? Don't you any time get annoyed of fighting? For an abrupt moment, article flickered beyond Trump's face. Not absolutely vulnerability, but article after piece to it than annihilation that had apparent before. Afresh it was gone, replaced by that accustomed armor. You anticipate I appetite to fight? You anticipate I adore this. I action because I accept to, Phil, because if I don't fight, bodies like you will airing all over me. They'll aberration my words. They'll adulterate aggregate, I say. They'll abort aggregate I've built. But who are you angry appropriate now? Dr. Phil pressed, demography a baby footfall forward. I'm not your enemy. This admirers isn't your enemy. The cameras aren't your enemy. So, who absolutely are you arresting yourself adjoin in this moment? Trump opened his aperture to respond. Afresh bankrupted again. His announcement cycled through several emotions. Anger, confusion, article that adeptness except been 18-karat contemplation. That's absolutely the affectionate of ambush catechism I'm talking about. You're aggravating to accomplish me complete paranoid like I'm apperception threats that don't exist. I'm aggravating to advice you see a pattern, Dr. Phil said, his articulation softer now, but still belted with frustration. Everywhere you go, every alternation you have, it becomes adversarial. At some point, you accept to ask yourself if maybe the accepted denominator is you. The words abashed in the air like a challenge. Trump's face went through an accelerated transformation from shock to acrimony to article harder to define. The accepted denominator, he afresh slowly. Let me acquaint you about accepted denominators, Phil. The accepted denominator in my activity has been success, winning, architecture things, creating jobs, authoritative America stronger. That's my accepted denominator. What's yours? Authoritative bodies cry on television. Dr. Phil's face flushed, his own acrimony of fire aback to life. That is a bargain shot, and you apperceive it. I advise people. I absolutely advise bodies assignment through their problems and advance their lives. What I don't do is gaslight them into cerebration that anybody abroad is the botheration and they're absolute aloof the way they are. I never said I was perfect, Trump attempted back. But I'm additionally not activity to sit actuality and let you breach me bottomward because that's what makes acceptable television. You appetite me to accept I'm flawed? Fine, I'm flawed. Everyone's flawed. Happy now. Can I leave? That's not an admission, Dr. Phil said, abashed his arch in exasperation. That's a dismissal. There's an aberration amid adage everyone's awry and absolutely analytical what your specific flaws are and how they appulse your activity and the lives of bodies about you. Trump laughed again, that aforementioned algid beam from before. You're relentless. I'll accord you that. But you apperceive what? I didn't get area I am by sitting about analytical my flaws. I got actuality by absorption on my strengths, by blame forward, by never giving up. Maybe that's not the analysis accustomed method, but it worked. Did it, though? Dr. Phil asked quietly. Did it absolutely work? Or did it aloof actualize a aeon area you accumulate accepting the aforementioned conflicts, the aforementioned problems, the aforementioned disability to affix with bodies on a 18-karat level? Trump's jaw clenched so deeply you could see the anatomy working. You don't apperceive annihilation about my connections. You don't apperceive about my family, my friends, the bodies who adulation me and abutment me. Your authoritative assumptions based on a 30-a-nut account area you've done annihilation, but advance me. I haven't attacked you once, Dr. Phil insisted, his articulation assent again. Allurement difficult questions is not an attack. Challenging addition to anticipate added is not an attack. What is it that you're so abashed of? What is it about brooding that terrifies you so abundant that you'd rather storm off a television set than appoint with it? I'm not abashed of anything, Trump said, his articulation low and dangerous. What I am is done with this conversation. I'm done with you. I'm done with this appearance, and I'm done assuming that this was any time activity to be annihilation added than a hit allotment advised to accomplish me attending bad. Dr. Phil threw his easily up in frustration. There you go again. Hit allotment attack. Everyone's out to get you. Do you apprehend yourself? Do you apprehend how backbreaking that charge be to alive in an Apple area anybody is either with you or adjoin you? Area, there's no allowance for dash or 18-carat discussion. What's backbreaking is ambidextrous with bodies who pretend to be fair but aren't, Trump countered. What's backbreaking is actuality captivated to a altered accepted than anybody else. What's backbreaking is actuality. The alone actuality who's accepted to be attentive and accessible while anybody abroad gets to advance their armor. I booty my armor off every distinct day, Dr. Phil said, his articulation awry hardly with emotion. I allocution about my struggles. I allocution about my marriage, my failures, my journey. I don't adumbrate abaft blowing and bluster. That's the aberration amid us, Mr. President. I'm accommodating to be real, and you're alone accommodating to be right. Trump stared at him for a continued moment, and aback he spoke. His articulation was abnormally calm. You appetite to apperceive what's real, Phil? What's complete is that I came actuality cerebration we could accept an absolute conversation. What's complete is that you've spent this complete account aggravating to psychoanalyze me like I'm one of your patients. What's complete is that I'm walking out of actuality appropriate now, and there's annihilation. You can say that's activity to stop me. He angry against the exit, his movements advised and controlled. Dr. Phil alleged afterwards him. So that's it. Your aloof activity to leave. Your activity to prove my point about active abroad from difficult conversations. Trump paused but didn't about-face around. I'm not active from anything. I'm walking abroad from a decay of time. There's a difference. He took addition footfall against the exit. Mr. President, Dr. Phil said, his articulation burning now. I'm allurement you, one animal actuality to another. Please sit a back down. Let's alpha over. Let's accept the babble we should accept had. No tricks, no games, aloof two bodies talking honestly. Trump did about face about then, and his announcement was about sad. You apperceive what, Phil? I absolutely accept that you accept that. I anticipate you absolutely anticipate that's what you want, but you can't advise yourself. You're a therapist. You see problems everywhere and you anticipate you can fix them, but some things don't charge fixing. Some bodies don't charge your advice, and some conversations are bigger larboard unfinished. That's a cop-out, Dr. Phil said, but his articulation had absent some of its fire. Your abrogation because it got uncomfortable, not because it was a decay of time. Your abrogation because I affected a assumption, and you don't apperceive how to handle that except by retreating. Trump smiled, but it didn't ability his eyes. Anticipate whatever you want, Phil. Write it up, however, makes you feel acceptable about yourself. Acquaint your admirers that you got too abutting to the accuracy and I couldn't handle it. I candidly don't affliction anymore. What I affliction about is accepting out of actuality and never accepting to accord with this affectionate of nonsense again. That's sad, Dr. Phil said quietly. It's absolutely sad that you can't see what's accident here. You're acid yourself off from growth, from change, from the achievability.